The New York Yankees continue to make quiet but very strategic moves as the new season approaches. In the last few hours, a trade caught the attention of everyone following the team closely. The organization has once again shown that its long-standing philosophy remains unchanged, which is to constantly search for pitching depth even if it means giving up position players. This latest move involved sending an infielder to another organization in exchange for a young pitcher who is still developing but already showing very promising numbers. It is the kind of move that may not generate huge headlines immediately, but these are often the trades that end up becoming very important later in the season or even in the coming years, especially when it comes to building a strong and reliable pitching staff. The player leaving the organization did not have a very long run wearing the Yankees uniform, and his time with the team was relatively short compared to what many fans expected when he first arrived. He originally came in as part of another deal and was seen as someone who could add depth to the infield and possibly develop into a useful utility player. However, things did not develop exactly as planned, and his opportunities at the major league level were limited. During his appearances, he struggled offensively and was unable to consistently produce at the plate, which made it difficult for him to secure a permanent role on the roster. Even so, he still has potential and may find more opportunities with his new team, where he could settle into a utility role and get more consistent playing time. In exchange, the Yankees received a young right-handed pitcher who has been quietly building a very solid profile in the minor leagues. What makes this acquisition interesting is not just his age, but his performance over the last season, where he showed strong command and the ability to strike out a large number of hitters. His earned run average was very impressive, and his strikeout number suggests that he has the kind of stuff that the Yankees development system likes to work with. One of his standout pitches is his changeup, which has already become known as his best weapon on the mound. Pitchers who have a reliable off-speed pitch often develop very well in the Yankees system. So this is clearly a move focused on long-term pitching development rather than immediate major league impact. While the trade was one of the biggest talking points, it was not the only important update surrounding the team. Another major topic right now is the situation involving the starting shortstop, who is currently recovering from shoulder surgery. The injury was related to a partially torn labrum, and although it was not in his throwing shoulder, it was still serious enough to require surgery and a long recovery process. The injury actually happened earlier in the season, but he continued playing for months before finally undergoing surgery at the end of the year. That decision allowed him to help the team during the season, but it also meant that his recovery timeline would extend into the start of the next season. The latest update suggests that he is progressing in his recovery and could begin a rehabilitation assignment sometime in April. This rehabilitation period will essentially function like a full spring training for him, allowing him to gradually return to game speed and rebuild his timing at the plate. This is very important because coming back from shoulder surgery is not just about being able to throw again, but also about regaining confidence and rhythm in all aspects of the game. The team is expected to be cautious with his return because he is still very young and considered an important part of the future of the organization. Throughout his first few seasons in the major leagues, his performance has been somewhat inconsistent, which has caused mixed reactions among fans. Some people expected him to become a star very quickly, while others understood that young players often need time to adjust to the major league level. He has shown flashes of power, speed, and defensive ability, but he has also gone through periods where his offensive production dropped and his defense became inconsistent. Despite that, the organization still believes in his talent and potential, and they're not even close to giving up on his development. As the new season approaches, the Yankees are entering the year with several questions that still need answers. The roster has talent, but there are uncertainties, especially regarding pitching and player health. The return of key players from injury will play a major role in determining how competitive the team can be early in the season. The division is expected to be very competitive, and every early season game could become important later in the standings. That is why the team is being very careful with injured players and also why they continue to look for pitching depth through trades and player development. Another major storyline involves the starting rotation, which has already faced some unexpected challenges during spring training. Some pitchers struggled with consistency, while others dealt with minor injuries or performance issues that forced the coaching staff to reconsider their early season pitching plans. Because of these complications, the team is now considering adjustments to how they will manage the rotation at the beginning of the season, and this could lead to opportunities for some younger pitchers to step into bigger roles earlier than originally expected. As the Yankees continue evaluating their pitching situation, the biggest concern right now revolves around how the rotation will look at the very beginning of the season. With some key pitchers unavailable and others still trying to find consistency after spring training, the coaching staff has been forced to think strategically rather than traditionally. Instead of immediately locking into a standard five-man rotation, the team is preparing to begin the season with a different structure, which could change how innings are distributed during the first few weeks. This kind of approach is not extremely common over a full season, but early in the year, it can help teams manage workloads and buy time while injured pitchers recover. One of the pitchers who has been at the center of this discussion is a young arm who showed flashes of brilliance in previous seasons, but has struggled with command and consistency at times. His development has not been perfectly linear, which is normal for pitchers, especially those returning from injury. The team still believes he has the talent to be an important starter, but they also understand that rushing him into a major role before he is fully ready could hurt both his confidence and his long-term development. Because of that, there is a real possibility that he could begin the season spending a short period of time in the minor leagues to continue building rhythm and refining his control. The early part of the season will therefore be very important, not just in terms of wins and losses, but also in terms of evaluating players and deciding roles for the rest of the year. Some pitchers will have the opportunity to prove they belong in the rotation long term, while others may transition into bullpen roles depending on how the roster evolves. These early decisions can have a huge impact on the team later in the season, especially when the schedule becomes more demanding and injuries inevitably become part of the equation. At the same time, the offense will also need to step up early in the season, especially while the pitching staff is still finding stability. When a rotation is dealing with injuries or adjustments, it becomes even more important for the lineup to produce runs and take pressure off the pitchers. The Yankees lineup has the potential to be very productive, but consistency will be the key factor. Long stretches of offensive production can help the team stay competitive even if the pitching situation is not fully settled yet. There's also a lot of attention on the younger players on the roster because their development could play a major role in the overall success of the team this season. When young players take a step forward, it often changes the entire dynamic of a team. Improved defense, better plate discipline, and smarter base running can make a huge difference over the course of a long season. The Yankees are clearly counting on internal development as much as external acquisitions this year, which means several players will need to show noticeable improvement. As opening day approaches, the overall feeling around the team is a mix of uncertainty and quiet confidence. There are definitely questions that still need answers, especially regarding injuries, rotation structure, and player development. However, there's also belief within the organization that the roster has enough talent to compete if things start falling into place. The early weeks of the season will likely tell us a lot about what this team will look like moving forward and which players will end up playing the biggest roles throughout the year. As the season gets closer and closer, the internal competition within the Yankees roster is becoming one of the most important storylines to follow. When a team has several unanswered questions, spring performances and early season games often become auditions for bigger roles. This is especially true for pitchers who are fighting for rotation spots and position players trying to secure consistent playing time. The coaching staff is not only looking at statistics, but also at consistency, confidence, and how players handle pressure situations. Sometimes a player who is not the most talented on paper earns a bigger role simply because he proves to be more reliable and mentally prepared for big moments. One thing the Yankees organization has always valued is pitching depth, and this season is another example of why that philosophy exists. Over the course of a long baseball season, it is almost impossible for a team to rely on just 5 starting pitchers without dealing with injuries, fatigue, or performance issues. That is why the team continues to invest in young arms, develop pitchers in the minor leagues, and create competition for rotation spots. Even if some of these pitchers do not start the season in the major league rotation, chances are very high that many of them will end up pitching important innings at some point during the season. Another interesting aspect of this roster is the balance between experienced players and younger talent trying to establish themselves. Veteran players bring stability, leadership, and experience in high-pressure situations, while younger players bring energy, speed, and the potential for rapid improvement. When a team finds the right balance between those two groups, it often creates a very competitive environment inside the clubhouse. Younger players try to prove themselves, while veterans try to maintain their level and help guide the team through difficult stretches of the season. The early part of the season is also very important because it can shape the strategy for the trade deadline later in the year. If the team starts strong and looks like a contender, the front office may become more aggressive in trying to add players to strengthen the roster for a playoff run. On the other hand, if the team struggles early, the organization might focus more on player development and giving opportunities to younger players. That is why the first few months of the season are not just about wins and losses, but also about evaluating the direction of the team. There's also a lot of focus on defensive consistency, which is something that sometimes gets overlooked when people only talk about home runs and pitching velocity. Strong defense can save pitchers, prevent big innings, and change the momentum of games. The Yankees have been working on improving defensive consistency, especially in the infield, where injuries and roster changes have forced several adjustments over the last seasons. Having a stable and reliable infield can make a huge difference for a pitching staff that is still trying to find its rhythm early in the season. But before we continue, please remember to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the latest news about the New York Yankees. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments. Whispers are growing louder across the baseball world, and they carry a tone of disbelief mixed with intrigue. A situation that once seemed unthinkable is now being discussed in clubhouses and front offices alike. Maverick Handley, long associated with the Orioles system and seen as a loyal piece of their future, is suddenly at the center of swirling rumor involving a dramatic shift to one of their most historic rivals. According to sources close to the situation, Hanley's reported arrival in New York was anything but quiet. In fact, insiders describe a celebratory atmosphere surrounding his reception, as if the organization believes it has secured not just depth, but a player ready to surprise. The optics alone have fueled the narrative of betrayal, with Orioles supporters already framing the move, if confirmed, as a symbolic break in trust. What makes the story even more compelling is the timing. Hanley had been viewed as a steady, if understated, presence within Baltimore's pipeline. While not always in the spotlight, his work ethic and defensive reliability earned him respect internally. That's precisely why this potential switch has struck such a nerve. It's not merely about roster movement. It's about identity, loyalty, and the emotional undercurrents that define rivalries. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the New York Yankees, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.